welcome back. I am Largo, and today we're checking out another death battle video. Today it's going to be Zatanna Zatanna from DC Comics versus Wanda Maximoff from Marvel Comics. Both of these people are immensely powerful magic users. I think almost everybody's familiar with Scarlet Witch at this point. She's been big in the Marvel movies. She's had her own show. She's a fairly popular character now. So I think a lot of people know Scarlet Witch, kind of understand her, but she is kind of a complicated character a little bit. And then on the other side, we've got Zatanna, who is one of the most underrated characters in all of DC Comics. A lot of you guys that follow me and have watched my death battles, you guys know that I'm a huge comic book person. For all intents and purposes, I'm basically a comic book expert, especially when it comes to DC Comics. So we're in for one today. I know both of these characters very, very well. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, see what the guys at Death Battle have to say. I'm sure I'll stop and put my 2 cents in as we go along. So let's go ahead and check it out.
The Scarlet Witch, Marvel's Crimson Queen of Chaos.
Zatanna, DC's magnificent mistress of magic.
There are those who wield the mystic arts like gods to reshape creation to their whims.
And there are those who just like to put on a hell of a show. Either way, don't mess with them if you know what's good for you. He's Wiz and I'm Boomstick.
And it's our job to analyze their weapons, armor, and skills to find out who would win a death battle. Though we may drift day by day in a world seemingly concrete and eternal, the fabric of reality is in fact more delicate than we might dare to wonder. Imagine every single iota of it, every star, galaxy, universe, all within the grasp of a single mortal woman, to control at her whim. Imagine the danger we're all in if you piss her off.
We don't have to, because her name is Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. As a kid, she and her brother Pietro were poor Romani, who were lucky enough.
I already feel like they're already kind of overplaying Scarlet Witch. I know there's a couple of you out there already going, what are you talking about overplaying? No, she's powerful, don't get me wrong, but when they're like, oh, okay, every realm of existence is hers to control. Well, that's not really true. That's not really true. Can she access different realms? Absolutely, no question about it. Is she powerful to affect an entire universe at once? Yes, she is. She is. But to say that she has like complete and utter control over all realms, that's pushing it. We're pushing it. That's not entirely true. So
to be turned into super-powered freaks by the High Evolutionary.
Unable to control her apparently new magical abilities, it wasn't long before Wanda lost control and was branded a witch.
Until who would show up but the mutant master of magnetism himself, Magneto. Definitely giving off some big dad energy there.
So, to return Magneto's kindness, she and Pietro joined his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Great name there, Magneto. Solid branding.
And it wasn't long before she traded her supervillain creds for a membership with the Avengers, which might have been a bit too much for poor Wanda because she definitely drew the superpower short stick.
By waving her hands, Wanda could create small random events known as hexes, subtly altering the probability of any event happening.
That's a cool way of saying she could do like one magic-y thing per fight and then be totally useless. An energy blast here, some telekinesis there, a force field if she's feeling frisky. Not exactly the same oomph as, say, the God of Thunder or the Jolly Green Worldbreaker.
But something strange was happening. Over time, her hexes increased in breadth and power, as if there was more to Wanda's powers than met the eye. She learned to slow and stop time, drain and absorb energy, duplicate herself and others, teleport to different dimensions, and even strip others of their powers entirely.
It was almost as if there was more to Wanda than just being some random science experiment. Let's ask our resident expert on the deepest trenches of character history. Jocelyn, if you will.
In reality, Wanda's powers weren't entirely the result of the High Evolutionary, nor was she the mutant daughter of Magneto, as he's claimed. Her powers weren't just some simple hexes. She might as well have been a god. Until now, she had merely been dipping her toes into the vast ocean known as chaos magic. Though her powers may have seemed to be the byproduct of science, they were in reality the gift of the Lovecraftian elder god Cthon, who attempted to turn Wanda into his future vessel.
Reminds me of my summers by the sea with old Uncle Yogg-Sothoth.
In time, Wanda discovered she could alter the probability of anything she could think of, turning a mathematical impossibility into an absolute certainty, and vice versa. Wanda's powers kept growing and growing, turning her into a being strong enough to rival even the mightiest of gods. Like, literally, Wanda's chaos magic is counterpart to the Phoenix Force, the embodiment of cosmic order. You know, that fiery space chicken that can destroy the universe? Wanda fought it, and even briefly erased it from existence.
At her height, the Scarlet Witch achieved total control over energy, the weather, the elements, your mind, your body, your soul, all of time, all of matter, and all of reality. She can wipe you from existence with a thought and rend the very fabric of the universe.
So, all the things that they're saying here are technically true. Yes, she can do all of these things. However, the thing that they have not mentioned yet, and I don't know if they will, they probably will, hopefully, is she has the ability to tap into an immense amount of power. She has very, very little control over it, though. That's the key thing here, is could she potentially do any or all of these things? Yes. However, even her greatest feats, she can't fully control, right? The biggest feat she's ever did with her no more mutants thing, right? That's what everybody likes to point to when they say, how powerful is she? They always point to that feat and they go, look, she can do this. That affects everybody. True, she can. But she doesn't have total absolute control over it. She changed the world and changed a lot of things for a lot of people, but not everything is within her control. There's certain changes that people didn't like and didn't want. Like she can't control everything, and she doesn't have full control over her power. So there is a lot she can do. She is incredibly powerful. She's one of the most powerful magic users in Marvel Comics, period. However, what separates her from other magic users is her distinct lack of control, right? Wanda is dangerous because she can't control her powers. Look at what she did in the Wanda TV series, right? Like, she could change all that stuff, but she wasn't in complete control of it all, right? Agatha was there. Agatha was messing with stuff. She couldn't even keep full control over the people within the bubble that she was trying to change things with. Like, things were starting to slip. Like, she's powerful, but her biggest downfall is her inability to control her power. So,
as though it were tissue paper.
She isn't even limited to chaos magic either. They might not have been what made her a god, but the High Evolutionary's experiments did make her more receptive to channeling magical energy. Oh, maybe that's why Mama Boomstick always warned me about redheads.
She's so receptive, in fact, that Wanda is the lone nexus being of the 616 reality, a focal point for the universe's magical energies, and one that belongs equally to all other timelines.
It's no wonder she was considered a candidate for Sorcerer Supreme. I mean, shit, why wasn't she? She might as well be a walking, talking Infinity Gauntlet.
Well, she may have the power of...
And that's exactly why. Why wasn't she Sorcerer Supreme? Because she can't control it.
a god, but she's still stuck with a human's body that can be overpowered by physically stronger foes. Though, she also survived being shot with a black matter bullet capable of, and I quote, world-shattering energy. So there's that.
She does technically need to be able to think of a spell in order to get it to happen, so she could theoretically be blitzed, but she's also blocked Thor's galaxy-crossing hammer, kept up with dudes like X-Man who can fight within plank time, and even amp her own speed beyond the concept of speed herself.
Despite being far and away the mightiest among Earth's mightiest heroes, Wanda resented the pressure of her incredible power. She actually wanted a quiet life as a wife and a mother.
But because no one in comics is allowed to have a happily ever after, that life was taken from her by literal Satan. Not the last time he'd do this, too. Wanda snapped
Mephisto,
and she
you
took
so
the
crazy.
multiverse with her.
By tapping into an inconceivable and unknowable pool of energy known as the Life Force, Wanda rewrote all of reality, creating a new universe where life was just how she wanted it.
No matter whose lives she had to change, in this House of M, she had her family back, but at the cost of her sanity.
And it wasn't long before it all came crashing down around her. Once her family and friends discovered the lie of their new lives and turned against her, she uttered 3 fateful words and erased nearly all of mutant kind. No more mutants.
Wanda weaved her magic throughout all of existence, created cracks across reality which spread throughout the Omniverse, and threatened to annihilate all of creation, the entirety of Marvel's infinite cosmology. Everything that ever was.
Shit got dark, and while Wanda has worked to keep her powers in check since then, that threat is always there. But honestly, that sounds more like a problem for anyone who's stupid enough to get in her way.
Both a blessing and a curse, a help and a hex. Such is the true power of the Scarlet Witch.
All right, so that was the breakdown for the Scarlet Witch, aka Wanda Maximoff. So I know it seems like that I was just taking a dump on her the whole time, but all I'm trying to do is, because like I said at the beginning of the video, I think people are a lot more familiar with Scarlet Witch. Most people that are going to see like the death battle and stuff, they're not going to have read the comics for Wanda. They're not going to know like her comic book history. They're going to know what they saw in the movies. They're going to know what they saw on the TV show, know what they see here in something like Death Battle. She has limitations. She's not as powerful as they would like to make her appear in this, is what I'm getting, because they're really, really pumping her up. They're literally saying, oh, everything in all of creation, in all of existence, in all of Marvel Omniverse is just subject to the whims of how she feels that day, which is not entirely true. She's powerful, but it's not quite on that level. Let's go ahead and jump into the DC side of things. Let's go ahead and see what they have to say about Zatanna Zatara, DC's resident magician, if you will. Zatanna is no joke. She's nothing to mess around with. Let's go ahead and check out some of her feats and her abilities and stuff.
One come all to see the magnificent Zatanna Zatara, for never was there a greater professor of prestidigital performance.
AKA magic! Except
Magic.
Zatanna's spells aren't just smoke and mirrors, they're the real deal, so you're really getting your money's worth.
She learned everything she knew from her father, Giovanni Zatara, who put his powers to good use as one of DC's very first superheroes.
No joke, he's the guy who taught Batman everything he knows about escape artistry. He debuted the same issue as Superman, and the young Zatanna was more than happy to serve as his assistant, learning everything he knew about the cutthroat world of entertainment. Oh, and Cape shit too, but the former is way worse.
She inherited her father's incredible mystical abilities as well. Essentially, anything Zatanna thinks of, she can make real. And she focuses this absurdly powerful ability by speaking her desired effect backwards. Her father based this technique on the diaries of Leonardo da Vinci, who some theorize wrote backwards in order to hide his ideas from the repressive medieval Catholic Church.
Or because he was left-handed.
That's another theory, if you hate fun.
And Zatanna's apparently big-brained enough that she has no problem speaking backwards at the drop of a hat. Like when this one dude kept reversing time in the middle of her sentences, she started speaking in palindromes so that she'd still be speaking backwards no matter what. I mean, you know what they say, Wiz? Go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog.
With her magic, Zatanna has bent the laws of reality to her whims. She's transmuted matter on an atomic level, teleported across dimensions, commanded the elements, turned invisible, removed powers, cast illusions, read and controlled minds, traveled through and stopped time, and can even wipe people from existence with a single word.
So here's how I view Scarlet Witch and Zatanna. I think they suffer from opposite things. Like, people are constantly viewing Scarlet Witch as more powerful than she is, and people view Zatanna as less powerful than she is, which is why I feel like this is a fair fight, but it's also a weird fight because they occupy different locations on like the social spectrum of like how much people actually know about them.
It might not seem obvious from that hokey magic castle getup, but Zatanna is one of the most powerful sorcerers in DC. Like the time she battled the Time Tailor Zor, an old enemy of the Spectre. You know, the angel of God's divine wrath.
In order to
put this in a way that makes sense for like Marvel readers, the Spectre could battle the Phoenix Force or Galactus, stuff like that. Like, it's literally on par with the feats of Scarlet Witch.
To defeat an opponent of such unimaginable power, Zatanna focused her magical might into shattering the boundaries of reality. She reached out beyond the very comic panels themselves and pulled Zor's entire magical universe down around him. She literally handled all of reality like it was a sheet of paper and crumpled it in her hands.
That might seem completely incomprehensibly impossible to us, but it's all a matter of belief. Literally, as long as Zatanna believes she can do something with her magic, she'll do it.
As she puts it, her magic is essentially asserting one reality, then replacing it with another. This is similar to other magical characters like Dr. Fate and Green Lantern, whose powers have been stated to work the exact same way.
But it's not like any rando can do magic by wishing on a star. Zatanna is genetically predisposed to this kind of magical reality warping. Her mom was in actuality a Homo Magi, a subrace of humans that are naturally adept at magic.
So it's no wonder that Zatanna became an invaluable member of both the Justice League of America and Justice League Dark. The Shadow the Hedgehog version, basically.
Zatanna harnessed an entire year's worth.
Justice League Dark was basically the magic aspect of Justice League. So the standard Justice League would tackle extraterrestrial threats, other superhumans, other metahumans, aliens, things like Darkseid, Starro, Despero, stuff like that. You know, your run-of-the-mill comic book villain type deals. Justice League Dark dealt almost exclusively with magic threats. So the Justice League Dark team was composed of magic users like Zatanna, John Constantine, Swamp Thing, stuff like that.
Of sunlight into a single energy blast, created ruptures across all of space and time throughout the DC multiverse, and has even claimed she's as powerful as Superman himself. Pre-Crisis Superman, in case you were wondering. Her only limit is her imagination and will. In fact, her backward speaking is mostly a stagecraft tradition meant to boost her concentration.
In a pinch, she can cast a spell with a single thought, and I doubt anyone's winning a quick draw with her. She's matched superheroes like Martian Manhunter, who's scanned every mind on Earth in a blank instant. Or how about Dr. Fate, whose magic traveled across the universe at the completely immeasurable velocity of God.
Zatanna has fended off countless reality-shattering threats like the Eldritch Upside-Down Man, Primordial Darkness, that is evil incarnate, and the Void Beyond Creation, Prolaya.
This shadow goop lady ate all of DC Comics, all of creation, everything. Gods, demons, rabbits, and spandex, everything. And Zatanna's magic was strong enough to hold her back.
And then, after secretly implanting Swamp Thing inside Prolaya, she weaved a spell within him to literally regrow all of reality back in seconds.
Zatanna tricked a being older than God and then blew her ass up from the inside with a whole new omniverse. Abracadaddamn-dabra.
Such is the almighty power of Zatanna's will. Should it falter though, or should her focus be disrupted, it could all come crashing down like a house of cards. Belief is a fragile thing after all, and her powers were weakened for a time after she lost belief in herself.
And she's definitely got one big weak point. She's a huge daddy's girl.
Despite her amazing career, she has struggled within herself to live up to her father's legacy, especially after his heroic death.
And this MFer has died a lot of times. So Z's therapy can't be cheap, especially after dating John Constantine. Oh, I can just smell the lager and self-loathing from here.
Dude, yeah, dating John Constantine is gonna give you some issues, bro. Dude, John Constantine, man, he's a conversation for another day, but man, he's a real piece of work, man. He's a terrible person.
Here. No, wait, that's me.
Questionable romance aside, Zatanna is a consummate professional raised on one singular principle. The show must go on, and she'll always finish strong with a standing ovation.
Alright guys, that was the breakdown for Zatanna from DC Comics. And before we get into the fight, I'm gonna go ahead and throw my guess out there. Now this is Death Battle. I have thought that they were wrong before. So here's what I'm going to say. Both of these characters, Scarlet Witch and Zatanna, have essentially the same powers, right? The key difference between the two of them, in my opinion, is Scarlet Witch is working with an immense amount of power, but she can only like halfway control it, right? Zatanna is on a similar power level to Scarlet Witch, but she's like the opposite. Her powers are based like entirely upon being in control. So based on that, right, if we're saying that these two magic users essentially have the same level of power, but one is in control, one is perfectly in control, and the other one is only in control half the time, I'm gonna have to say that the person who's in control of their powers will win. I would put my money on Zatanna. That being said, Scarlet Witch, like I said, is a million times more popular, and I think she may actually get the fight based on popularity. If that happens, I'm not gonna be happy because I'm gonna disagree with it, but I think she might actually win based solely on her popularity and how people view her, as opposed to how Zatanna has always been viewed, which is essentially as a joke, as a stage magician. So I want to say Zatanna, but I feel like Scarlet Witch is going to win on a technicality. So let's jump right into it and see how this plays out.
Oh, thank you.
Also, and this goes into my rationale for why I think who would win, is Marvel and DC. I don't know if I've said this before, I think I have, but Marvel and DC tend to view their characters differently, and therefore they write them a little bit differently. DC Comics characters are typically viewed as the ideal of what a superhero should be, which is why you get characters like the Flash, Superman, even Zatanna, right? Meanwhile, Marvel likes to write their characters as they are not the ideal depictions of superheroes. They are flawed versions of superheroes. And I think that shows, like, that mentality as a whole, as a company for DC and Marvel, that shows clearly in this battle.
Thank you. And for my first trick,
For my first trick, I'm gonna pull Scarlet Witch out of a hat.
ta-da!
You, what sort of two-bit sorceress do you think you are?
2-bit?
Perhaps I was being generous.
All part of the show, folks.
Just popping bunnies. Bruh.
I'd say this calls for an avenger.
So we're just calling in backup now?
Do you know the difference between you and I?
Well, I think the difference is...
Bro, I feel like this is a Megamind moment, right? Do you know what the difference between a villain and a supervillain is? Presentation, right? I feel like that's what's about to pop off here because she's a showman, right? She's like, Scarlet Witch is like, oh, this is about power. And she's like, no, it's about style.
presentation!
Yeah, boy! Megamind that
And
shit.
I know a trick when I see one.
Oh! Oh, dirty.
You never say so.
You can't run forever. Now make like a magician and disappear.
Kind of a corny joke, but all right. See? This is what I'm talking about. Losing control. Is is what I'm talking about, man. Scarlet Witch losing control, just going off pure emotion.
A disappearing act was the first thing Dad ever taught me. And for my final trick, swish it rolls. No more witches.
Oh!
And that's our show, ladies
Hey,
and
they gave it to Big Z! Hell yeah, dude!
Wow, that's a magic trick that's to die for.
Analyzing this matchup was like walking on a tightrope. It could fall either way at any point.
Because at
Okay, I'm curious. I'm curious if they say the same thing I did, because to me the biggest difference is control. So let's see if they came to the same conclusion I did.
the end of the day, both these ladies could do basically anything with their magic. All they had to do was think and shit would happen. They were totally even. At her peak, Wanda was able to threaten the stability of all creation.
And at Zatanna's best, she was able to hold back Pralaya, who could do the exact same thing. And despite some differences, the omniversal cosmologies of Marvel and DC Comics are roughly equivalent in size and
they're close
scope.
enough.
All that was left for us to look at was their weaknesses.
While both were as powerful as one another, Wanda needed to tap into the life force to reach that pinnacle, and doing so threatened her sanity.
Let's take a closer look at the events surrounding House of M, where Wanda's powers were at their maximum.
Despite admitting that she was way stronger, Doctor Strange managed to get the best of Wanda with a cool head and a spell that briefly knocked her out cold.
His wits against her mental instability were enough to turn the tide.
To be clear, this instability definitely wouldn't affect her power. She was still strong enough to create a completely new alternate reality and then erase it just as easily. What it would do is leave her open.
Also, take her No More Mutant spell. As insanely powerful as it was to affect the whole of Marvel's creation, it wasn't entirely successful. There was still a tiny portion of Earth's mutant population left.
See, it's exactly what I said, dude. Her biggest feat, right? The No More Mutants thing that people always point to, it wasn't in control, right? She said no more mutants, but she only wiped out like 90%. Like her spell wasn't complete, it wasn't full, it wasn't finished, or it wasn't done right or something, right? Because she said no more mutants, and there was still like 10% of the mutant population left. Like so technically her biggest feat was still a failure.
Left unaffected, likely due to interference from Strange and Emma Frost.
Against Zatanna, who is just as strong and not losing her mind, she wouldn't be able to afford that kind of lapse, even for an instant.
On the other hand, Zatanna has managed to maintain her willpower fighting foes just as strong as the Scarlet Witch, so she didn't have the same kind of exploitable weakness.
And remember, she doesn't actually need to say her spells backwards.
It helps with her concentration, but all her spells come from her mental impulses, just like Wanda. She's consistently pulled off non-verbal spells in the past, even against beings as strong as Pralaya.
In the end, Z definitely had enough experience fighting smart and keeping on her toes to hang with Wanda long enough to get in a finishing blow.
While there were definitely versions of this battle that could have ended with Wanda victorious,
Oh, yeah.
Zatanna's cooler head and effortless magic allowed her to prevail.
I guess you could say Wanda never saw it coming, and Zatanna Maxim offed her.
The winner is Zatanna.
So yeah, no, I definitely agree. There are versions of this fight that could have played out where Scarlet Witch wins. But I think what they're going for here is if you put them in some kind of like hyperbolic time chamber and had the fight repeat itself 100 times in a row, Zatanna would have over a 50% win rate, meaning she would probably be the winner more often than not. And it's because of these reasons. Now, there's absolutely a scenario in which Scarlet Witch just gets so angry and loses her mind so much that she just essentially creates a tidal wave of magic so powerful that even Zatanna can't stop it. Sure, but again, that's just an example of like a complete lack of self-control. That's just, they essentially came to the same conclusion I did, where you have two characters that are essentially identical in powers and abilities, but the only difference is their weakness, and their only real weaknesses is their own mental state. You know, one of them is more in control of themselves, their emotions, and their abilities than the other one is, and that's who's going to win the fight. Overall, frankly, I was a little concerned they were going to give it to Scarlet Witch just because she's a more popular character, because she's in movies, television shows, has her own show, shows up in Avengers cartoons and all kinds of stuff like that. She's all over the landscape as far as media is concerned. Really glad that they decided to give it to Zatanna, because that's who I felt would have won. Like I said before, DC, Marvel kind of view their characters in different ways. So more often than not, at least in my opinion, when you compare characters that are similar, typically the DC version is going to be a little bit stronger or more powerful. That's not always the case. Don't at me at that. I know somebody out there is about to type in some Marvel character that's like, well, this can beat its DC counterpart. Sure. But for the most part, on average, I would say DC writes their characters a little bit stronger. And yeah, another great death battle. This one was really close, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you did, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. As always, consider hitting the subscribe button to support the channel. And as always, leave a comment down below. What other death battles do you want me to check out, or what other videos in general do you want me to check out? Leave it down below and we can get to it in the future. As always, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Thanks for watching the video. Take care of yourselves and have a great day.